Well, after a week's hiatus, we are back for another edition of Unplugged. St Kilda had a bye. We felt we probably needed one too. It was a tumultuous, pretty heartbreaking couple of weeks on field, and obviously a fair bit of tumultuous stuff off field as well. So a good chance to catch the breath. An utterly disastrous loss in reality to the Adelaide Crows, and listening to a lot of the feedback on social media, some say it was the most painful loss they'd experienced, or some like me could see it coming for probably the last hour of the game, so much so that it didn't end up hurting because you just like, it was always going to happen. That's just what we do. It was clearly a tough watch. Clearly there were things that could have happened differently and we would have won the game. Only one or two of them would have been enough. Little moments here and there, but a tough loss, one that does, even though there's a mathematical possibility, it does put a nail in the coffin, you would think, on the season. The Sydney loss in reality did that, but the Adelaide loss certainly confirmed it. We look ahead to Richmond. So we play the two-time reigning premiers who beat us by 15 goals earlier in the year. So some crowds returning and a lot to talk about. A few big names returning to the side as well. A couple of those unfairly created controversy through no fault of their own, but we'll talk a bit more about that as well. We'll welcome the panel. The match was in Cairns. H, I'll start off with you. Halfway through the second quarter, the commentators were talking about Adelaide going scoreless in the first half. An hour later, they'd beaten us.
Commentators curse. They're talking about they're never going to score, and then all of a sudden they pile on 10 goals to 3 or 4 or whatever it was for the rest of the match, or I don't think it was even that many.
9 goals to 3, yeah.
Yeah, it's just painful. I don't know whether they're, I don't know, getting that far ahead and sort of going, okay, we're good here. We'll just do what we have to do from now, or what it is. And is that the reason we haven't put teams away previously when we've had the opportunity to, say, like North Melbourne? I mean, if North Melbourne started their run earlier in the match, they would have beaten us as well. It's, yeah, just where's the effort once they've put in all that effort to get that far ahead? It just disappears. And I just don't know what you do to fix that. It's just really painful to watch. I think some of us were talking about the turning point being the fact that, what was it, 35-0, then Hunter Clark gets knocked out, and the game just turned on its head. Surely one player doesn't make that big a difference to a game. So
no,
who knows what it is?
It was one of those ones, and you know, you're right, Parker, about the two types of St Kilda fans, I think, in how they approached that loss. And H, you know, we were talking with Charlie a couple of weeks ago, just before the Adelaide game, and his perspective at the time before the game was, I almost don't care anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm done. I've had enough. Like, it doesn't matter what they throw at me. It can't hurt me anymore because it's hurt so much for so long that it just doesn't hurt. I just don't feel it anymore, and it doesn't matter. And I think there was a lot of that. You know, like you said, Parker, I think it was so obvious that it was happening, and it was like that slow motion train crash. It was like you could see it an hour out that this is what's happening, and this is going to happen. Like, it's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's going to happen. But it was, I mean, I was almost the opposite. That was almost the worst I've felt after a loss for a really long time. I was almost like the first time that I've been completely devoid of joy or hope or any. It was like that just sapped all energy and all hope from my soul. And it was something that, you know, I think we're, you know, as Saints fans, you always hang on to that little glimmer of hope. But, you know, for a few hours or a day or even a couple of days after that game, it was like that was gone. It just vanished. And it was like, what do we do now? Like, I have no idea where we go to now. And that was really difficult to deal with. But you're right, H. It was almost like that hit on Hunter Clark just completely turned the momentum. And like you, I don't know how that happens, because it's not like, you know, he was playing well, but he wasn't best on ground. He wasn't a dominant force in the middle. He wasn't winning the hard ball and dominating clearances or anything like that. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't being a superstar out there. He wasn't Superman. And it's not like you take, you know, a guy, he just wasn't having that type of impact. So taking him out of the game or taking him off the field should not have had that much impact on the rest of the squad. And maybe it was, who knows? Maybe they knew that he was seriously injured, and that deflates you. And of course, that's upsetting and whatever. But these guys are professional athletes. Like, they've got to be able to compartmentalize and move on. They've got a job to do, and whatever it was that sapped them of their hope and their energy, it was just impossible for them to overcome.
Now, it's interesting. Anger is often easier to deal with as an emotion than sadness and frustration. I think most people know that. Like, if you vent and you're frustrated, it's sometimes a bit easier to sort of get that out. And I remember watching that whole last quarter. I'm like, we could hang on and win this game by a point, which when they kicked it out in the full with a minute to go, it looked like we might do. And I'm like, but it doesn't change much. Like, it's still a collapse. We would have been very, very lucky to win the game had we have hung on. And it was almost like when that Thilthorpe goal went through, as much as your heart sunk, my reaction was, you just got what you deserved, you bastards. Like, the way you've been playing, that was always going to happen. And you're almost angry after the game. And look, Titus O'Reilly, who is a Melbourne supporter, so he kind of knows what he's talking about, put it on Twitter that there should be a charter in the Geneva Convention for what St Kilda does to its supporters. And it was just that anger. I'm like, we invest so much in this, and you dish that up for us. Like, it was embarrassing. And I must have been, after the game, it didn't hurt in that sense. I was angry almost to the point of laughing, thinking that's ridiculous. And then the following day it hurt a bit. Like, Sunday was a bit of a battle. Just sort of, you didn't want to watch the footy for the rest of the weekend. You were flat as a tack, thinking it's absurd that this keeps happening. There's no logical explanation. And yeah, I just remember my immediate reaction was almost to chuckle and just go, they got exactly what they deserved. It's just simple as that. Like, their approach to defence held up really well, but they went into their shell the rest of the group. Yes, you're missing a couple of soldiers and you could lose one more and it's the tipping point. But if you've outscored a team 11 shots to zip and you're 36 points up, there are no excuses. I mean, before the game, I thought we'd probably lose because we had too many guys out, but we were tearing them apart. So all of a sudden that excuse is gone. On the balance of the 22 you had versus the 22 they had, you were dominating the game, so you shouldn't lose. And that's the reality that comes out of it. I mean, for me, the Geelong loss hurt the most on the season because I thought that was our season. We'd won 2 in a row. We played a premiership contender. We beat them to go 5-4. We're in the 8. Our percentage is still ordinary, but we're okay. Losing that game just took the stuffing out of all of us. We lost Marshall and Jones in that game. And then, obviously, the loss to Sydney, to me, ended our season realistically, and that one hurt a lot for a week. But the Adelaide game, it was like, well, just kick us while we're down, really. I guess that's what made it different.
Yeah, for me, I think the week off definitely helped, kind of put things in perspective. And I think that, if there's any positive to come out of that game, it was that we didn't win. Because we didn't hold on, because we didn't scrape through, it doesn't allow for any papering over those cracks that keep widening and getting bigger and bigger each week. If we'd won, if we held on, there would have been Adelaide came at us so hard late and we held on, we scrapped and we fought and we held on and
bullshit. Yeah.
100%. And this did not allow for that because we didn't hold on. We didn't scrap. We didn't fight. There was no energy. There was no heart. And you couldn't hold on to, well, we got the 4 points because there was none of it. In previous weeks, there's always been, well, we got close, like the Geelong game. We were better than them all game. And we nearly stole it from the premiership favourites. Sydney, we deserved to win, or we should have stolen it at the end, and we just didn't. We just weren't quite classy enough at the end. But we're not that far off. Now there's no excuse. There's no papering over the cracks. There's no forgiveness. It is what it is, and we are just rubbish at the moment. Like it's that simple. And we'll talk to someone who had a history of building a culture and leadership, and there's a void of that in our club, and there has been for a very long time, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next 6 or 8 weeks, given this whatever this internal footy department review that's going on at the moment, whatever that is. It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that at the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's just become a worrying trend. I mean, we saw last year the couple of games, North Melbourne, Freo. Then there was a couple of other games like the final where we got a reasonable lead and then just held on in the end. And it's come back again this year, but on top of that, we're getting absolutely belted in other games. So we're not winning the games outside these ones where we're falling over and losing. We're being belted and then picking off a few wins here and there and then losing these ones that we've had in the bag or should have been able to hold on to. It, is there not something being done to stop these momentum runs? I mean, Adelaide stopped our momentum. I mean, we keep them scoreless for virtually 45 minutes of play or 48 minutes of play, whatever it ended up being. And they've gone, okay, we do something. We make this stop. They put something in place and then they start picking away. And have we changed something to stop that happening back to us? Has there been a second, like a plan B put in place when things like this happen? It just seems to be on, we just continue doing what we're doing and don't worry about changing anything. It's, I don't know. Are we scared to change? Are we scared to say, oh, this isn't working, but we don't know what to do? There's just so many questions that come up thinking, well, why aren't we trying something? We saw against Sydney, Timmy Membry threw himself back into the back line and almost won the game for us when you look at it. If he wasn't down there, Sydney win by 5-6 goals.
We spoke to Tony Brown a few weeks ago, and I'm amazed that kind of no one's made a bigger deal out of it. But he said, one of the things he kind of said off the cuff was that Jaron Geary is that leader within the club, and when the tide starts turning, he's the guy that rallies the troops, that kind of calms everyone down, that either calms them down or brings the energy and kind of leads them through. And for all his faults, not the most skillful footballer, he's not the quickest runner, he's not he's not all of these things, but I think it's been really clear that in all of these games that we are devoid of leadership, and we missed Jaron Geary and his leadership, especially in kind of crisis moments when the momentum's shifting, when the tide is turning. There is no one out there that can do what Jaron Geary does for us. And I mean, that's an indictment on our footy club that we have no backup leadership. Not so much on the players themselves, but on the club, that they haven't been able to put these things in place. And Jack Steele is doing an incredible job, but he's not that leader yet. He leads in terms of his footy action, but in terms of putting the team on his back, the way that he acts and is vocal. Jaron Geary is not the most vocal captain in the competition, but when he stands up that he stands up, and when he speaks they listen. Jack Steele doesn't have that yet. He's a phenomenal player. Like, I love Jack Steele. He's our best player, and he's having another fantastic year. But he's not yet the leader that Jaron Geary is, and we don't have anyone to kind of fill those boots at the moment.
Some players are out injured, some players are young, some players are down on confidence, and some of them get excused. Jaron Geary's one of those, clearly, and I agree. It annoys the hell out of me when supporters, even on our comments and various other comments, tell us that he's not in our best 22. He's so far entrenched in our best 22 based on leadership that it's not funny. He leaves a gaping hole in the side when he's out. But at the moment, and it's evident in the floggings and it's evident in the games where we've given up leads and even last year to an extent. And it probably sounds harsh on others, but for one reason or another, and injuries are factors in that, when it has got hard this year, you trust Steele, Howard, Membry and Ryder, but not many others. Maybe Wilkie, maybe Crouch at times, but they're the four guys only that I would say, when the wheel turns in games, have consistently this year stood up, either kicked big goals, defended, put their head over the footy. For me, it's Steele, Howard, Membry and Ryder, and it's very difficult to mount a case for many others in those circumstances. And that's the frustrating part about it. As we say, there are kids in there and they can be forgiven. Someone like a Burns or a Bytel who unfortunately got concussed during the week. There are others who can't, clearly, because they've been around long enough. And even guys that are second, third, fourth year players that have been really disappointing. Not so much guys like, Max King, clearly his confidence is shot. That's another issue. But you look at guys like, apologies for pointing the finger, but you look at guys like Loney, like Long, like Hill, like Billings, like
even.
Webster's probably one who's been pretty solid. He's been okay. Butler, Higgins, these sorts of guys that just, when it has got into those clutch situations, that we haven't been able to rely on them. We haven't been able to call upon any level of experience consistently enough. That's not to say they haven't had their moments. Billings was huge in that West Coast game late, but it's just, in terms of reliable, if you were to sit there and say the opposition's going to turn up the blowtorch, which players do you know will stand up to that? To me, it's those four, and there aren't many others that I can confidently say would do that on a regular basis, unfortunately.
One of those disappointing things, you talk about that leadership vacuum, and look at a guy like Seb Ross, and we'll talk about Seb, and Seb's been a wonderful servant of the footy club for a long time, and this is not, like you said, I feel bad pointing fingers, but Seb Ross has been vice-captain. He's been a stand-in captain. He should be one of those guys that when the chips are down, that he's the one that puts the hand up and says, I'm gonna lift, and I'm gonna lift the guys around me. Luke Dunstan was captain of his under-18 team and his state team. I'm pretty sure he was a captain of in TAC Cup and national championships. Nick Caulfield was a captain of the Northern Knights, I believe, and potentially even Vic Metro or whatever the championship team that he was in. So there are guys that have grown up being leaders, that have been leaders in previous iterations of their career, I suppose, and for one reason or another have not been able to take that next step to be that guy, to be the one to say, I'm going to do what no one else is doing. I'm going to take that first step. I'm going to put my body on the line. I'm going to do what needs to be done in this moment. We don't have anyone outside of those, those three or four guys that you mentioned.
And one of the things I say a lot is you're only as good as your bottom six. And quite often that bottom six hasn't turned up at all. And a few weeks that six is actually extended out to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if 12 that, players at times. It's just getting that lower end of the players who should be threatened losing their spot in the senior team, which seems to be not happening every week. There's players that you sort of go, what did they do last week? Why are they still there? It's, what are they offering us? Is there players that should be pushing them out of their positions? So that getting that bottom six right, going, if you don't do something this week, you're not guaranteed a spot. You're going to go back and play VFL. It's players that in that region that we need to look at and lift and be. They're the ones that we need the coaches, the captain, everyone getting to and saying, you're here to help us. You're here to help get the rest of the team through this week. It's just crucial to get that part of the team correct, because that's what will pull you down. The first thing that, as soon as they're not there.
Now, we'll talk to Grant Thomas about some of those cultural and leadership aspects shortly. He's a guy that has always been extremely passionate about the club, led us through some very good times. Again, as we say, bookmarked a bit with some heartbreak in there, but did put us on the path, I think, which led us to the Ross Lyon team, which was another step better and almost won a flag again. So we'll have a chat to Tomo about a lot of that sort of stuff. And also the issues of the week very, very shortly. But might rattle through the votes and just full stop that Adelaide loss. I gave apology for me for Howard, as I mentioned earlier. I love his commitment, leads the league in spoils. I love his passion. You see that he had probably the worst free kick of all time paid against him on the goal line, obviously late in that game, which was particularly crucial. But he just missed out. I gave a vote to his colleague in Highmore, who took 14 marks, played a Tom Stewart type game. Thought he was very, very good, and bemused as to why he's been not a regular starter over the course of the season. I gave 2 votes to these 2 guys have probably been our best midfielders for a month. 2 votes to Brad Crouch and 3 votes to Jack Steele. They had 71 possessions between them, clearances, tackles. Brad Crouch kicked a goal that should have been a sealer. It put us 36 points up in the third quarter. It was our last goal of the game, strangely enough, but thought those 2 guys were very good. So I gave 1 to Highmore, 2 to Crouch, 3 to Steele, with an apology to Howard. Nick?
Yeah, very similar. My apology is to Highmore. I thought he was very good. And like you, I'm just kind of baffled or bemused as to why he hasn't been a staple in this team, especially given some of the outs and personnel issues that we've had throughout the year. I gave 1 to Dougal Howard. I thought he was really good. And you're right, that free kick was just falling. But 24 touches at 83% efficiency from a fullback, 13 intercepts, 7 marks. He did everything that you ask for from your fullback. I gave, like you, 2 to Brad Crouch, 36 touches, 19 contested, 6 tackles, 5 clearances and a goal. Most days, that's probably your best on ground. He put in a really solid performance against his old mob. But once again, the 3 votes goes to Jack Steele, another 34 touches, 19 contested, 12 tackles, 12 inside 50s, 9 clearances and 605 metres gained. Like, this guy just doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. And he's that far and above our best player. And we've spoken about this before. He might not be the most important player to our structure and the way that we want to play, but he is that far and above our best player that it's not even close. It's not even a contest at the moment. H?
And I'll give my apology there to Howard. I almost snuck him in, but I think Tommy Highmore, that game, clearly the best game he's played for us. That he was on par to break records in the first half there at one point. It's the intercept marking that's some of the best we've seen since, I guess, the likes of even Goose Maguire. He just sat himself in the position and just picked everything off that he could, and that was a brilliant game. And he should not see the bench for the rest of the year. No sub, no VFL. He's in the senior team. That's it. No, he has to stay there now. There's nothing that should be even injury. That is it. No excuses now. To Wilkie, I don't think he got given the credit that he actually deserved, to be honest. I mean, he didn't have a lot of the ball. He didn't take a lot of marks, but the work he did on the likes of Walker and their other forwards during the night, they didn't dominate us like they have, like Tex didn't dominate like he's done other weeks. He kept them really quiet. He got to the positions. He made the contests. He basically kept them out of the game in the first half. He's the reason probably they didn't score in the first 48 minutes of the match. His defence was brilliant. Obviously, gets a little bit overshadowed with what happened, but he still held his position even when they were basically running over the top of us. I had no point of blame on him for them kicking all those goals at all. I don't think he had any sort of less impact on what the game turned out to be. And 3, Jack Steele has to be. Tossed up between squeezing Crouch in for 1, but I had to keep Highmore there. And but yeah, Steele best on ground clearly.
Yeah, so often the case with Jack Steele and his ball use. Before we hear from Tomo and take a look at that Richmond game, where there should be some pleasing ends, obviously in Membry, Ross and Rowan Marshall, who's so important to us. And look, I hate using things as excuses, but a lot of guys that have missed so much footy are in our top 6 or 7 players for importance in Gresham, certainly, and obviously Jones. Rowan Marshall certainly being one of them, and Zach Jones, and now Hunter Clark. I mean, Hunter Clark, that's a 6 to 8 week injury. We're not playing finals. We've got 9 games left, so I would think that's the season probably. Jaron Geary certainly out for the year, and obviously that creates questions over whether he plays again. Dan Hanbury's torn his calf for the 39th time or something like that. So who knows if he ever plays again. look, we could do a whole podcast on that, unfortunately. Jake Carlisle out for the year, and again, don't know whether he plays again either. And obviously, we know that Gresham and Patton have been out for the year for quite some time. But the freshest injuries in that are Geary and Clark. We'll touch on Clark shortly, but obviously the biggest issue of the last couple of weeks was the comments made on Footy Classified by Caroline Wilson relating to Seb Ross and Tim Membry, both of which have been guests on our podcast. Seb Ross's wife gave birth to twins the day that St Kilda played the Gold Coast Suns. They missed that game and then obviously opted to go home. The plan was initially for he and Tim Membry to fly home to Melbourne and then get a travel exemption, which would allow them to fly straight from Melbourne to Cairns. So their intention was to play, but that border exemption didn't come, and that was the risk they took. And Tim Membry, whose wife was expecting a child and actually had the child on the day that we recorded this podcast. So that's really good news, and congratulations to Tim. But I guess there's a few concerning layers out of this. In a time, obviously, where we talk about, the importance of family, the importance of mental health and well-being and those sorts of things, that somebody would openly criticise a decision like that, and also bring in the Paddy Ryder personal leave from the start of the year, and also make statements such as, but Seb Ross's kids aren't even sick, there's no medical conditions, which is absurd. But almost more concerning than that is that clearly somebody at the club did hold that view and did tell the media that. Caroline Wilson was extremely irresponsible for saying it and has form, but someone at the club felt that way, which is equally irresponsible. And I know, Nick, you penned a really good article about this. I know you and Aaron are both parents, and I'm recently married and hopefully will be soon. But yeah, it seems a no-brainer that they would support that, and it's concerning that somebody, or perhaps a few people in the club, did not.
I mean, it's one of those things, right? I mean, we as a football club have prided ourselves on our social and community and cultural, elevation, into the stratosphere of being leaders in that environment, in that regard. And so, like you said, there are multiple points, and we'll start with the obvious one. The obvious one is Caroline Wilson's comments, right? And I think there's multiple layers on that alone. And one of the things is that she was reporting the news, which she started out by doing. She started by saying, sources have told me that there are, members within the St Kilda Football Club that weren't pleased with the decision for these guys not to play, and et cetera, which is clearly true. That is what appears to be true. That is fact. That is news, and that is well worth reporting on. The second part was the fact that she turned that into her own opinion piece around what is right, what is not right, what members and fans and the footy community and sponsors should feel entitled to from footballers, and that they deserved, that these people, sponsors, members, fans, etc., deserved better from Seb Ross and Tim Membry, which is just absolute rubbish. And like you said, I wrote that article the day after those comments, and I was pretty strong in saying that, that was A, irresponsible from her, and B, potentially dangerous into how, some of these guys, younger guys, perceive, their future family prospects, how they are able to support their family, when it comes to it, that if they feel like they need to go home and support their wife, their partner, their kids, for whatever reason that is, whether they're sick or not, doesn't really matter. If they feel that need, then they should be able to do that. And to have someone of the media stature, whether you like her, respect her or not, she's a giant in football media. For her to come out and say the things that she said has the ability to change perspectives, to change opinions, to change the feelings of some of these guys, to be able to go to their football club and say, hey, I need to support my family. I need to look after my wife, my partner, or my kids. This is my number one role. My family is my priority. And they might feel that, but might not be able to say that, which poses a whole range of other questions and concerns and issues down the line. But on a purely football perspective, like you said, the concern is that there are people within the club who disagreed with that decision, and Why? I mean, we don't know. Like I said at the start, as a club, we've prided ourselves on being on being empathetic and sympathetic and you know allowing of our players to be humans and to feel and emote and go through the things that everyday people go through and to be able to deal and process with those things like anybody else should be able to do. And for there to be senior people within the football clubs that didn't appear to support these two guys to go and spend time with their own family was really disappointing. And then on top of that, to go and leak deliberately, to go and call a reporter and tell them this story and leak this news and whatever was doubly disappointing because the club just didn't need it.
No, they didn't need it at all. They didn't need it, and it happens, unfortunately, in these situations. And I know it's all too ruthless, but, if I was president and you found out who it was that was leaking that sort of stuff, they wouldn't work another day at the club. Whether they believe that or not, they're entitled to do it. But you don't deliberately destabilise your own organisation and potentially draw negative attention towards mothers, effectively, in that circumstance and family environments. And I get the news element of it. If someone tells you that from a club that it is news, but there is still a responsibility to the broader community in the sense that, they're unhappy about it. So what do we do about it? Is it a poor reflection on the club or is it a poor reflection on that person? It's certainly not a poor reflection on the families involved. And one thing I hope, I know there's only 25,000 at the St Kilda Richmond game and it's a Richmond home game, so there'll be 21,000 of them. But I would hope that, even as a show, because I haven't heard one single St Kilda supporter say that they disagreed with allowing Membry and Ross to go home. Not one that has said that was the wrong thing to do. So I would hope, and it might sound something very small, but I would hope the first time Seb Ross touches the footy that there is a fair degree of appreciation shown from the crowd, as in to say, no, we're on your side. That's fine. We understand that. You're a leader within the football club and you've made a decision that most people should make. And we're on board, so don't feel as if you're doing that alone or anything like that. So I would hope that would be acknowledged in some way, regardless of everything else that's going on in the scheme of footy. But I guess the other big thing that came out of it, H, was the Clark Mackay bump, if you will, bump/collision. What did you make of that? I was one that thought that the close-up footage, it looked like a football collision. When they showed the broader shot, it looked a little cruder than that. But I'm probably one that's in the camp of if the roles were reversed, I'd be disappointed if our player got suspended based on what the current rules look like. Whether they change that or not, I don't think you can suspend somebody based on what you think you want the game to look like if the rules don't currently police against it. You can't suspend them for a future rule. But I think they'll probably tighten that up around duty of care for someone like McKay in that one, that if you are, even if it's only a split-second thing, if you're second to the footy and you're accelerating in, that there is an obligation to try to protect the head. But I'm not too disappointed that he wasn't suspended.
I didn't honestly think he was going to get suspended, to be honest. Though in another chat group that isn't the one where we're not all in, there was a few comments saying, "Oh, he's gone for 6 to 8 weeks, etc., etc." I said, "No, I think this is just one of those unfortunate incidents that it has happened. I mean, you see this sort of collision how many times a game that a player doesn't get injured in. It happens quite often in matches. It's just unlucky that his head was in the wrong spot. That's as simple as it is. I was very surprised when I heard it's going straight to the tribunal. I was a bit, okay.
I thought he'd get weeks when that happened.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, that's a bit unfortunate because generally that means it's a minimum of 3 weeks. So when it came back as being no, it's been chucked out. I was thinking, yep, that's pretty much what I expected. First up, I wasn't expecting it to need to go as far as the tribunal. So the talk has been from that. If they change that rule, then they're changing the rule of the marking contest. If a player marks a ball and you're there just slightly late, but you've got your arms out going for the ball and you clash heads, are they going to suspend a player for that action as well? It's just too too much in the way of an accident being penalised. It can't go that far, I don't think. It's not what the game's meant to be. So it's just one of those incidents that you go, that's happened. I mean, it's really unfortunate. That's for sure. We may not see him for the rest of the year. It just depends on what his recovery is like, and you might see 2 or 3 games in the year at best. But that's just what happens, and we'll see many bumps this week that look reasonably similar. That both players come straight out of it, and there's nothing. So it's pretty much what I expected to be in the end.
It's one of those ones. I don't know. I mean, I'm part of me is glad that he didn't get suspended. The other part of me expected him to, and in no way. And again, I've written about this over the last couple of weeks, but in no way am I saying that David McKay intended to hurt Hunter Clark. In no way am I saying there was any malice or intent to hurt Clark and to have that outcome. I don't think anyone has said that or implied that at any level. I guess my perspective was that this is a guy who accelerated the contest, provided, whether you want to call it a deliberate bump or a collision, he was the one. Clark was almost stationary, trying to gather the ball. McKay was the one who was accelerating, who was in action, in pursuit, I suppose, in that contest. Elected at some level, like I said, whether it was a bump or a collision, whatever you want to call it, elected to make that contact. And clumsy, not malicious, not intentful, clumsy, an accident, 100%. But your shoulder impacts the head or the face of your opponent. Normally, that will get a week or two. I'm not saying he should have been gone for 6 or 8 weeks. Like, that's just ridiculous. But a week or two, I think would have been fair. Like I said, I'm not disappointed that he wasn't rubbed out, but I think I would have quite happily, easily accepted 1 or 2 weeks. But I mean, what do you guys think of this whole argument of changing the fabric of the game? And there's been a lot of talk about, what is the fabric? Like, the game has changed so many times. It has evolved over 150 years. The game is not the same as it was in 1865. It's not the same as what it was in 1965 or 2005. The game has changed and evolved in so many different ways that this whole argument is, if David McKay gets suspended for an accidental bump or a clumsy bump or whatever, collision, a football collision, that it's ruining the fabric of the game. It's just like, I just found that ludicrous. What do you guys?
Yeah,
how do you guys
bullshit
sit with that?
argument. It's as you say. I mean, the AFL uses on promotional videos throughout the 90s and 2000s. Michael Voss absolutely hammering Alan Richardson at the Gabba. He would have got 14 weeks for that these days. That was just a good bump, and the crowd's like, "Oh, magnificent!"
Biffs and bumps and brawls, isn't there? Like,
yeah, that's right, and it's. I don't think. I mean, if David McKay had got suspended for that, the next player attacking the ball is not going to pull out. It's just the way it is. Like, you'd ride your luck in that situation. My worry was that if Clark had have stood up and was fine and broke McKay's jaw just through luck, would he have been suspended? And probably not. But the theory is that, are they looking only at the injury in these situations as a means of penalty? So, yeah, I'm not big on that, the whole fabric of the game argument. I mean, there'd be 1,000 incidents in the game from 20 years ago that would be worth multiple weeks these days, but we don't really feel as if the game's gone too far one particular way, I wouldn't have thought. So,
and like I said, I don't subscribe to the whole, well, he's out for 8 weeks, so the guy who impacted must be out for 8 weeks. Like, there was clearly no malice or intent to hurt him. But a review or a suspension, whatever you want to call it, a tribunal, is not predicated on intent. It's purely on the action itself. And one of the guys initiated the contact by accelerating and impacting that contest. One of them was almost stagnant, trying to pick up the ball on his own, not moving towards his opponent. And he was almost helpless is too strong a word, but he was unguarded and vulnerable.
Mm.
And McKay made that decision consciously or subconsciously to impact the contest the way that he did. And I thought that probably, and the fact that it was a clumsy collision, deserved a week or two. That's all.
Yeah, and that's certainly a fair argument. Yeah, I think.
And you kind of look at it. It kind of has changed from last year when you look at it, because a lot of people compare him to Ben Long in the final last year, saying, well, he's knocked over a guy who's gone down for 3 seconds and got 3 weeks for it. Do you look at that and go, well, that has changed in a way there? They've looked at it and sort of thought, well, maybe that kind of thing was wrong, or is the difference there that you're looking and thinking, okay, that's better for what the game is?
It wouldn't be the first time we were a guinea pig that led to a rule change, and then we copped the rough end of it on both occasions. But
that's true. But to be fair, what Ben Long did was not just clumsy, but it was. I mean, it was dumb.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
Watching it live,
the comparison.
Watching it live, I was thinking he'll get suspended for that.
100%.
And look, he's one of those players now, Ben Long, that has to wear that. If Ben Long was David McKay in that situation, he would have got weeks because of his form. Like Toby Green would get weeks if he did what Joel Selwood did. That type of scenario. There's clearly and David McKay's played 250 games and probably never been reported, and that's valid. Not a dirty player by any means, but certain players obviously carry reputations with them along the way. Obviously, a lot of those issues we've dug into, but we are going to do our sort of mid-season review and just a general broader landscape chat with the Saints, around the Saints, and to help us do that is former coach Grant Thomas.
Long kick. Massey to Edwards. Stood up in the tackle. Couldn't find Dougherty. It's over. The Saints are through to the preliminary final. What a performance at AAMI Stadium.
Well, Grant Thomas was a former star with the Saints and, of course, a former coach from the back end of 2001 through until the end of 2006, 3 consecutive finals appearances, including back-to-back preliminary finals in 2004 and 2005, and always been a very passionate critiquer, but also a very passionate St Kilda supporter. And we're doing a review this evening, and we thought that Tomo would be a great voice to add to that chat. Tomo, thanks for your time.
Pleasure, guys.
Now, a little bit of an editorial, I guess, from my point of view, that one day it feels like St Kilda are a million miles from a flag, and then the next day it feels like they're not that far away, because my brain convinces myself, they missed some shots against Geelong. They probably should have won that game. They missed 4 set shots in the last 2 minutes against Sydney. They kick any one of those, they win. They were 6 goals up on Adelaide, and Hunter Clark gets injured. But then my brain corrects itself and goes, we always miss shots in big games. We always don't nail those moments. We always appear to be unlucky in close matches. And I'm like, well, that's probably our fault. It's probably not bad luck or circumstances. And does that make sense? Is it a case of we always appear to be unlucky, but if you're unlucky so many times, it's got to be your fault?
I suppose when you win one premiership by 1 point in 150 years, you're always lamenting what might have been. And St Kilda has always had a propensity to adopt a victim approach about itself. So it's quite consistent with a lot of Saints fans you talk to. They're always lamenting what might have been, and we could have done this or we could have done that and everything else. But at the end of the day, great organisations or great clubs, they're accountable for performance and their actions, and they probably tend to address those circumstances more regularly and don't get into the ruts that St Kilda finds itself in on a regular basis. It's the frustrating thing for me. I'm just a footy fan like you guys, and I'm a Saints fan and unabashed, and I just get frustrated that we find ourselves back in the position we're in. It's a lot of deja vu for me. It seems like a similar position to 20 years ago. Christ, was it that long? Yeah, it was. God almighty, 20 years ago. what a waste of 10 years. Anyway.
It feels that way, doesn't it? But Grant, when we confirmed that you were going to be on the show, we put a tweet out and asked people to come up with some questions to ask you. And one wise man got on Twitter and said, "I've got a question. What on earth is going on down there?" So do you have an answer? I mean, that was you. Do you have an answer? Do you have a perspective? What on earth is going on at Moorabbin?
I was going to say what a very smart person that question was from, but look, I get very frustrated when the leadership within the club come out and start protecting themselves and giving excuses and protecting the players and everything else. When we get situations like the ridiculous Ben King, Max King, of talking to his ex-coach Matthew Lloyd, somewhat of a legend within the game, and we get very precious about that as a situation. That tells me something. It tells me we're in protection mode. It tells me we're precious. It tells me we're more worried about our own ego and performance rather than opening ourselves and trying to see what the best thing for the club is. When I hear about us contacting the media and say, "Hey, listen, can you back off having a go at Higgins and King about their goal shooting? It's not really, helping them a lot." For God's sake, I just worry about that sort of stuff. And I just think we should be better than that and stronger than that. And this whole thing comes down to leadership any way you want to look at it. And, the President, Bassett, needs to have a really good hard look at his performance and what his expectations are. If they're in line, well, he probably needs to make a decision about whether he wants to go past this year. He has the huge responsibility to direct the club into the right direction, and he's got a great track record corporately in business and everything else. I've had one chat to him when he first started. He came into the office and, an impressive guy. Haven't had a chance to have a chat to him since. I'm going to take up that option to have a chat to him at some point in time, if in the next week or two, to find out what's going on. Because I'd like to know. I'd like to know what decisions they're making, what leadership they're providing. There doesn't seem to be the right amount of connection amongst the team. They don't seem to be completely committed unconditionally. In my mind, coaching 101 is all about bringing your team to have a red-hot crack, irrespective of circumstances, who's in, who's out, where you're playing, what you're playing. And I just think we're a little bit selective in that area. So, when you look at the leadership, whether it's the coach, whether it's his advisor, whether it's recruiting, whether it's the people in charge of the football program, the football department, whether it's the chief executive, whether it's the board, there's no shying away from it. They've got to have a really hard look at themselves, and I would strongly recommend a very, very independent and formal review. I heard they're having an internal review at the moment, but that sort of worries me because it's like, the loonies are in charge of the asylum in some ways. So you wouldn't want people like Lethlean and Bassett doing a review on themselves. I don't know who's conducting the review, but I'd like to see the results of it. I'd like to know who's doing it. But I think it's time we made some really hard calls. We've had enough of trying to patch up things. I think it's time that we had a complete overhaul, a completely blank canvas, and started to make the necessary decisions to ensure that St Kilda Footy Club is going to be a force to be reckoned with going forward, that it's going to earn the respect back of the football public, that we're only going to entertain people that are interested in premierships and interested in doing whatever's required to win one, that is going to be selfless, egoless, and provide the necessary leadership to ensure that we're right at the top of the tree. And there's two types of clubs in AFL. There's one type of club that is in the premiership business, and there's usually about 6 or 8 teams regularly. Some of them always are in that, and the rest of them are just playing AFL. And I think St Kilda's just happy to play AFL at the moment. Our record is abysmal. It always has been. Even in our halcyon days in the 60s, we won one premiership by 1 point. We probably should have won 2. We probably could have won 3 or 4. We had an incredibly good team. I'll take responsibility that we should have delivered during my time. We didn't. Rossi, the same. So we're littered with underperformance and inadequacy. So if you think that how we're going about it now is the panacea for success, wow, it's not going to work. You've got to do something dramatic and drastic. We had a crack 20 years ago, and we wanted to define success by having a decade playing finals, and 5 or 6 of those years in the top 4 that'd deliver 1 to 3 premierships. That was the model. Pretty close to getting there. The train got derailed there by a nameless person, and took a while to get back on the tracks. But Rossi nearly got us there as well. But once again, we lived with incompetency and bad decisions, and we find ourselves in a similar position now. So it's a long answer to a pretty short question, but I suppose my question back is who's going to do it? Who's going to be the person now to lead the new change? It might be Andrew Bassett, but he's going to need to make some drastic changes. It's not going to happen with the current people we've got in place.
Now, that's mainly off-field, obviously, but look, on the field, have you sort of looked at it and gone, this doesn't... The leadership... Yeah, the leadership is that you brought in your own system of rotating captains, give him an experience, and that are you seeing that the leadership on the field's not working? We don't have the right people there, or what's something that will be able to, they could throw in to change that up?
Well, the guiding principle. I mean, Rui being captain for as long as he was, I mean, it's great for Rui. And he's right behind me. I love him. He's a family friend. He's like a son. It's not good for St Kilda Footy Club to have that principle. I mean, you have when he leaves, there was a huge vacuum behind him, and it's not his fault. It's the club's fault. We've got to have programs to have sustainable, perpetual leadership. That's what it's about. And but unless we've got the off-field correct, you actually can't get the on-field doesn't matter. I mean, they'll have their days where they play well and go okay, but this you have one loose link or one broken link in a chain within a club, and it's disaster. You have to have connectivity, synergy, solidarity amongst all aspects from the board level through the executive level to the operational level to the football department to the playing group and the extended people who support them. It's just a fundamental requirement. We've never had that. So we can drill down into how we're playing and the fact that we turn 4-goal wins into 8-goal wins because we run forward of the ball and we are very, very keen to put our hand up for easy goals and everything else for unaccountable teams we're playing. But when we don't get our own way, we're not that good. And Steely's a star. I think our defence works pretty hard and they're pretty good, but we don't have, to me, we don't seem to have made the right recruiting decisions in recent times. Well, for a long time, to be frank, and we don't have that 190 centimetre strong body midfielders that most clubs have got at least one, maybe two of. We've got Steely, who is a battering ram and fantastic, but he should be our third stringer. We need people who can sort of physically impose themselves in those contests, and most of our sort of better players, if you like, they're midgets. They're small, they're little, and that's great when we're going well. But grand final day or big final day, bigger bodied people are, in my mind, is a better recipe for success. Sorry to be
I think we looked at the situation last week. One of the cultural talking points centred around Seb Ross and Tim Membry. Keen to know, I guess, from your point of view, how you would have dealt with that from a club point of view. Would it have been a case of you got to do what you've got to do, totally respected? And did it concern you more that some in the club were disappointed, or did it concern you more that it was leaked, which it clearly was, which obviously suggests a degree of instability?
What concerns me that people within the club were disappointed. It tells me that culturally we're miles away. If you can't have the utmost appreciation, respect and support for any person within any environment, organisation, doesn't matter if it's a player or a work person in marketing, or it doesn't matter. If they've got a family to look after, you just go and look after your family. That's the most important thing. And if you haven't got a culture and an environment that creates that and fosters that, you haven't got anything. You just haven't got. I was just so shocked that that became an issue, and clearly was an issue internally at the club. As far as I'm concerned, every week you pick up the paper and 18 clubs have got someone rested for mental and or physical reasons. They're either cooked physically or mentally or whatever, they're rested. I don't know what the big deal was. Like, if Seb Ross wanted to spend time with his wife because of their twins, I don't care if he felt he had to take his son to the dentist because he had to have a tooth extractor. I couldn't give a stuff. Whatever the player requires in that area, they need to be respected and they need to be supported. And what's worse, you can't force a player to play under those circumstances. So, you want every player available as much as you can, but you absolutely need to have an environment where any player or person for that matter can put their hand up and say, hey, listen, I need to be somewhere else this week. It's just a fundamental, a basic fundamental. Says to me that everyone within the club is under extreme pressure, and they were really frustrated that a couple of their better players weren't going to be available for a game. So they were, looking to protect their own circumstances rather than the best interest of the player.
So, Grant, you've touched on that vacuum of leadership within the club. You've touched on, I guess, the culture of the club. But how, like Aaron mentioned before, you kind of brought in that rotating captains system or program. How do you build, leaders? What are some of those things that you can do to build leaders? Because you did that within our football club. It took some time. It didn't happen overnight. And B, how do you build a winning culture that is going to come out firing every week, regardless of who's in, who's out, who you're playing, where you're playing, when you're playing? How do you do that?
It's funny. I mean, everyone thinks it's a big mystery. It's so simple and basic. And people use the word culture, but if you get the right people in the right position, and you have the right connection and attitude and strategic planning for the one outcome, and everyone focused on that together, it becomes very simple. Of course, you have sessions around values and behaviours where you all talk about, who you are and what you stand for and where your deficiencies are and what you want to improve on and all those sorts of things. And there's a myriad of things that you go through, but it's also the experiences. Back in our day, of course, St Kilda, we started training camps. As you know, we started the AFL training camps, community camps, and a part of that was to let the players know that you're not that important. You might think you're important, but there's more people in the community, especially in country areas. They're just beautiful people that are so selfless and so caring and so giving. And they're all eye-opening experiences for players when you take them to a country environment. They're visiting jails and schools and hospitals and elderly people's homes and all the rest of it, giving talks and training down there. I mean, that's humbling. You then go take them to overseas training camps in London and South Africa, and take them to China, and 1 billion people in a city that we worked in, that operated in, that 30 million people, more than Australia, and expose them to all those elements. I mean, it's an education process. It's about advancing maturity. It's about helping the player to understand what's really important in life. It's about helping them to understand that they're only as good as the person to their right, and that they need to work cohesively as a team to get the best outcome for everyone. And back to what I said before, that you're in the premiership business and you're there to win a premiership. And if you want to be coached and managed towards that, it takes sacrifice, and you've got to be a pro's pro. You've got to give yourself up for that period of time to be the best you can be. And you have great role models in the club who know that and understand that. You have counsels and counselling towards it. You have mentoring programs towards it. You have buddy systems to enhance it. I mean, you have regular feedback, open and honest and transparent. And I stand out the front of the room first and say, righto, guys, give me feedback. I'm the coach. And I started off, and then it goes right through, and you do it regularly. It's all that shit, it's very simple. It's stuff all you guys would have done at different stages of work or home or wherever, but it's relentless, and it's just a natural thing to do in a sporting team, in a sporting club, when you are all living together every single day. And it's not as if you're a 100-metre sprinter and that's all you have to focus on, or you're a golfer or a tennis player. You're actually a footy team, and you have to be able to rely on one another. And if you can't rely on someone, you've got to tell them you can't rely on them. And if you don't respect what someone's doing, you need to be able to tell them you don't respect what they're doing. And it needs to be open and transparent in front of everyone. And all of a sudden, everyone rises to that level. And it's not rocket science, and the great teams do it. You see what Richmond does. I mean, I made an ass of myself by saying that, I was doing it in a complimentary manner, trying to say that they were one of the, worst inverted commas teams to win sides to win a premiership, meaning that it was just all credit to the coach and the club and the team, because they were so connected. And since then, they've just taken it to a whole new level, because their trust and engagement and everything with each other, it just jumps through the television screen at you. You guys see it. Everyone sees it. It's not hard to create. I mean, I'd like to think we had that at St Kilda when I was there. And every now and again, someone will shoot me a video of a game, and I look and I go, fuck, how magic was that? Jesus, that was fun. The guys just loved it, and it's exciting. So it's not too difficult to get, and once you get it, it's like a tonic, it's like a drug. You just want to keep using it, you just want to keep being it, and that's what it's about. But you've got to be able to look at everyone, front, behind, side, everywhere, and they've got to be on the same page. And it doesn't matter what part of the club they're in, they've just got to be connected like that.
Being the pioneer of sort of those overseas camps, as you're just talking about, and getting the groups together, getting them bonding, getting them as one, tying that in with something else, compared to last year, do you feel the fact that the guys had to go into their own little hub, they're all by themselves, they're in a foreign place, they all grouped together, do you think from the outside looking in that brought the team together, that made them play well, that made the team really gel, and they've come back to normal life, and all of a sudden things have changed a little bit? Do you feel like that at all, or How's that looking?
Look, with that may have had something to do with it, but the fact that they were all together and all the rest of it, that may have helped Rats's ability to get the team connected and driven to play as a team and not individually. That may have been a strong element for last year, but I thought last year the team played really well. I thought we'd be fortunate to make the 8. I thought I had a sort of 8, 9, 10 around there. We made the 8 and won a final. I was surprised to beat the Bulldogs. We played really well that game, and that was fantastic. I didn't have any expectations of us playing in finals this year. I thought we'd be around the same. If we got in, great, but I had us more around, 9 to 12, 8 to 12 around there. But and I know we got those guys in, but I thought, well, I'm not certain that they're going to be the sort of guys that are going to make the difference that is required. And I don't know some of the decisions we've made and why we've made them, but there seems to be a little bit of animosity around some of those things, and the team spirit, morale doesn't seem to be where it needs to be. I mean, spirit and morale is a really, really important, tangible thing within a club, and its spirit morale is based on 2 things. And firstly, you've got to believe that something's achievable and worthwhile, and secondly, you have got to believe that you have the ability to do it, and that's where spirit and morale come from. And so if you don't believe the challenge is worthwhile and you don't believe you have the ability to achieve it, well, spirit morale wanes very, very quickly. That's what it seems to me to be, is that last year we got up and we stayed up, and we're fairly consistent. The band between our best and worst wasn't great, wasn't huge, and that's always a good thing. Whereas this year it's really selective, big gap between our best and worst. We either have a competitive performance or we get smashed.
So, Grant, I guess last one for me, and it's a little bit of a two-parter, but if a role was to become available at the football club, whether it a board role, whether it a football department role or whatever, a management role, CEO, COO, would you put your hand up? Would you be interested in having a role back at the football club? And B, what would you do if you had one of those roles?
No, I wouldn't. I've had my time, and I have my own business that I run at the moment, and I'm really excited about that. I love it. I've got 65 staff, and we've built Australia's first and best digital bank called Up, and we've got nearly 400,000 customers, and we love it. In fact, coaching the engineers like a footy team excites me and excites them. They love it because they have never, let's call them the nerds, have never had that feeling, and they love it. And I'm really excited by the work I'm doing and everything else. If I could ever help St Kilda Football Club from a council point of view, an advice point of view, or a involvement point of view, I'd always be there for them, always, 100%. But that's up to the club, and I wouldn't stick my nose in unwanted. And look, I really think I've only got one good fight left in me, and if I get pushed too far, I might waste it on the club at a point in time. But I'll wait for others to stand up first and have a crack. I had my crack and we nearly got there, but it's now time for someone else to do that. But don't push me any further, Saints.
My final one from me, you sort of touched on it a little bit with the connection and the desperation and guys just wanting to play AFL. I know you had some big name recruits from other clubs when you were there, and Garrick and Hamill and Brett Voss, and even guys earlier than that like Callahan and those sorts of players that were handy. Can you have too many of the foreign legion, if you will? I've heard that perception from others that more than half of St Kilda's list have come from other clubs. Can players get comfortable almost if they're not grown there, and it's a case of I've got a pretty good pay packet, I'm earning a good living, I'm signed for 4 years. This wasn't home, and that maybe you don't get everybody gelled together like you should.
I mean, it's a valid observation, but I'd say good luck to the players. If you can get $600,000, $800,000, $900,000 for 3, 4, 5 years and blood your way through it. All credit to you. Good luck to you. I'd be looking at the club, and for the club to allow that sort of behaviour and that sort of selectivity amongst the playing group, that's where the problem is. It's leadership. It's not. If players, I mean, there's a lot of situations. It's like your kids, like your kids will sort of push so far, and they're very good at knowing how far they can go. And if mummy and daddy let them go a long way, God, they'll take the whole lot, no trouble. But if players are the same, if you've got an opportunity to make a statement a month ago, 6 weeks ago, round 10, whatever it was, and drop a couple of guys that absolutely needed to be dropped. In fact, they should have put their hand up and said, I'm out. But they're playing so badly. But then you go the other way and actually try and protect them and don't make any statement whatsoever. Well, you're actually letting us all know that standards aren't that important here. You can be selective. And if we're on a roll and we're going all right, well, everyone can jump on board. But if it gets really tough and hard, you're excused if you don't want to, put your head over the ball, or if you don't want to work as hard as the opposition. And that's what it's like. But I wouldn't be having a crack at the players. I'd be having a crack at the people that are in charge of leading the actions and the behaviours and the efforts and the attitudes of the players.
Now, we see the picture of Nick there behind you. Player that obviously, as you say, it would have been an absolute privilege to coach. At the moment, we have play down there, Max King. Now, when Nick was younger, he played a bit down back. Is that a move that you think that maybe could have helped Max early on in his career? Just send him down back a little bit and just get him to look at what other forwards do and get an idea of how structures work and that sort of thing. Just a different point of view, because that's sort of what it feels like to happen with Nick as he was in his first season and a half before he moved up and actually took control of our own forward line. Is that something you think may have helped him out a little bit?
Look, it's not going to solve the problem, and you would like to see a guy of his ability work his way through it, and I don't think we're using him anywhere near the right manner. I'd probably prefer to see him up at centre-half forward or playing a little bit higher than he currently is, because when you're in that last position on the last line, all focus comes towards you, and it's easy for defenders to double and triple team you in a goal square or 10 or 15, 20 metres out where he does most of his work. I would have no hesitation in him going into the ruck for a period, playing off a wing, playing off half-back, as you suggested. I think all of those are great learning experiences. When you know you're not in the premiership window, and we are not anywhere near the premiership window, it's not going to happen in this next decade that I can see. So now's the time to actually develop and experiment with those things and give people, you've got to have the courage to sort of, to potentially not get your best performance by allowing as many players as you possibly can to experience different roles and different circumstances during a season, so they can be multifaceted and adaptable and resilient and all of those things. But I think all of that would definitely help Kingy if he was given another role or played a bit higher.
most of our memories as St Kilda supporters do bring up pain and a bit of heartache. And certainly during your tenure, there was some painful memories. But overall, I think most of us remember that period with tremendous fondness in terms of the passion with which they played, the excitement, and we long for those opportunities again. We got a little glimpse of it last year, and unfortunately it was fleeting. We look for that next opportunity. But Tom, I always love your passion. I always love that you take our call, and thanks very much. And hopefully we can ride the wave as slowly as it may seem back up the ladder all together.
I agree with that. Keep up the great work, guys. All the best.
Grant Thomas there. We look ahead to the Tigers on a Friday night. It was humiliating last time we played them on the big stage on a Thursday night. Rowan Marshall and Paddy Ryder both missed that game. They will both play this time. It's a funny one. Like, I've got it in the back of my head. I can't see us winning a game against Richmond at the MCG at the moment with the players we have out. Their injury list has shrunk a bit. They've only got 2 or 3 out at their end. Lynch obviously being one of those, which is important. And I think Asprey potentially and maybe one more midfielder. But they're sort of starting to gather a bit of form. I know they lost to West Coast narrowly, but they had that game shot to bits. It was a loss probably similar to ours in a way, although they didn't stop for an hour. They stopped for 6 minutes, and that was enough. But I get the feeling we might actually be okay in this game. I don't think we'll win it, but I don't think we'll lose by 86. So I could see us being in the game and being one of those nagging ones where we have a few little opportunities that we don't take and maybe get beaten by 5 goals or something along those lines. But we lose Clark from the midfield and Vital, who came on as the sub for him. And the unfortunate part is I think Vital was concussed on a Wednesday. So if I'm calculating 12 days, you'll miss 2 games, not 1, which is frustrating. So he won't play. Whether they go with, given they get Ross back, whether that's enough, or whether they go with another midfielder like Connolly or something like that, I don't know. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But no, I don't know. I've just got a funny feeling that maybe coming off the break we'll be okay in this game. But I don't say that with any trust or any faith. But I could see us being okay.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the break does for us. I mean, is it going to freshen us up, or is it going to sort of go the opposite way and we come out a bit lackadaisical and just get absolutely blown off the park in the first 15 minutes? It's scary to think that they don't click back into gear what could happen in that first 15 minutes of the game. So hopefully the breaks refreshed them. Hopefully they've been able to sit down and nut a few things out and go, this is what we're looking at doing. This is what we want to do. This is where we want to get to. What is a path mark this week? We have that whole week and a half to think ahead and go, yep, this is what went wrong last time, which I don't think there was anything right that went last time. So it's very much going to be what happens in that first 15 minutes of the game is going to probably dictate the rest of it, because if we don't turn up, it's going to be a very long night again. And yeah, it's in front of what probably going to be 90% of the fans there, Tigers fans. Wouldn't be a nice place being out in the field if that's happening.
It's a really interesting matchup, and there's so many different types of narratives or angles that you can look at. And Parker, you mentioned earlier with Tomo about, as a Saints fan, you always look for those, those fleeting moments where your perspectives change, and sometimes we're shit house, and then the next day you have a think about it, you have a sleep, and all of a sudden we're actually not that far off. If something had gone our way, then we're a lot closer than we feel we are. And I guess depending on what your perspective is on any given day, like that can change almost minute to minute. But I look back at last year, and clearly we're not the same unit as last year. But I look at that game and think, if Paddy Ryder had played in that game, maybe we win that game. And all of a sudden, Richmond aren't unbeatables. Maybe all of a sudden they're not 3-time premiers.
That's right.
They're 2-time premiers, and we've bundled them out of the finals. And it can be those moments, those things. Paddy Ryder doesn't tear his hamstring. We beat Richmond the following week. Who knows what happens then, and who knows what this season looks like, after that. I'm not saying that because Ryder and Marshall are in this week that we're going to win because, I'm kind of resigned to the fact that we're not any good. And whether we're completely not any good or for this year, for whatever reason, we just cannot put it together. And we're not competitive for enough of the time to win games of football or whether we're actually just no good. And last year was an anomaly. I don't know. I'm not close enough to know. But anything can happen in 2 hours of football. And we turn up and our good players turn up, we can be competitive. And we've shown that. And the issue is that our good players haven't turned up consistently enough of the time for us to be competitive enough consistently as a team. That doesn't mean that we couldn't potentially put it together for a couple of hours on Friday night. Having said that, I'm not tipping us. I'm not tipping us.
Yeah, that's the thing. With margins, it's funny. Like you look at it and people assume you get beaten by 86 points or you're miles off that team. Now, we're not Richmond, clearly, but that's more probably a sign of mental. We were in front at quarter time. We missed 3 sitters in the second quarter. They kicked 2 before half time, led by 3 goals. We gave up and got flogged.
Yeah.
But what if we took those chances? What if Ryder and Marshall played? And I know that sounds, I'm not saying you win by any means, but we lost by 86 points not because we were shithouse. We lost by 86 points because mentally we collapsed. Now, in a way, that is shithouse, but hopefully people know what I mean in the sense that not a lot has to change to turn a flogging into a very close game or turn a close game into a comfortable victory. Football's weird in that way where it sort of goes off in momentum swings and stuff like that. I mean, you go from one little moment falls away, you have a bad 5 minutes, you collapse. Now that you've got to address why you're collapsing, but yeah.
There was one moment early in the second quarter of that first game where Max King showed the best and worst of his season.
Oh, yeah.
And, he gathered the ball. I think it was like a half volley. He gathered the ball in his wrong hand, spins around, weaves through 2 defenders, like seasoned Richmond premiership defenders, weaves through this pack of strong-bodied premiership defenders, snaps on his good foot and just misses. And that would have put us 4 goals up. Also, he misses, instead of 4 goals up, we're 2.5 goals up or thereabouts. And, they go up and they kick a few, all of a sudden, scores a level, they kick a couple more and they're up by a couple at half time. Like, 4 goals up halfway through the second quarter is the point when you have the option to start burying a team. And I felt like that moment almost, and not putting it all on Max King. He's got other issues and confidence issues and whatever. But that was almost the moment that kind of solidified where we're at mentally and emotionally as a football club, because we didn't have the strength to overcome some of these things that we just weren't executing right. And Richmond took full advantage for the rest of the game. And our season has continued in that trajectory for pretty much ever since. And that's not to say that had King kicked that goal that we would have won the game, that our season would look very different. But you never know. And it's those little moments, those things that just don't go right when you absolutely need them to, that can change an entire season or an entire football club in some regard. And, I don't think... I think we match up on Richmond pretty well, but we have this thing about not executing and then you just drop your bundle, and we just don't have the emotional or mental strength to compete against, the dynasty that is Richmond, and they are built on mental strength. They're not the most skillful team. They're not the fastest team. They barely win the hard ball. They don't win clearances. They don't win contested possessions a lot of the time. But they have this mental resolve to outwork you, to outplay you for long enough to just bury you time after time after time. And we don't have that. We're not even close to that.
The sort of team that if everything goes your way, you're right amongst it against them. You see them get frustrated. They get very frustrated when the things aren't going their way, and it quickly pulls them down. You can see, like, the biggest example is probably Jack Riewoldt. When the ball's not coming to his hands, you see him throwing his head back, throwing his arms around, getting frustrated, this is what's going on here. It's as soon as it's not working, they kind of drop off a bit. So if everything goes their way, they roll. They just keep rolling, and you've got no hope. But get in there, get under them, get them frustrated, and that's your first step to actually putting a decent performance on the board against them. And everything goes right, it can be a surprise, I guess. It's just a matter of if we turn up and if they don't turn up. So
I guess
it seems to be the common way that they play their football. If they turn up, you pretty much no hope. But if get them early, then you're right.
My final thought, I guess, I know it's been a big one this week, is that the constant theme from us this year is not rolling up our sleeves when it gets hard. Like, we'll have a crack for a while, but if it gets a bit difficult, we've gone to sleep repeatedly this year. So for the 9 weeks that remain this season, that's the biggest thing that we have to address. And Richmond, there's a chance that at some stage they might get hold of us. It's a possibility, as you were just saying. If they lift and take control of the game, the one thing that I ask, and hopefully that doesn't happen, hopefully we're right in it the whole way through, but all I ask from them every week for the remainder of the year is, if that happens, just roll up your sleeves and fight. Doesn't mean you'll win, doesn't mean you're good enough to get over the top of them, but just don't lay down. Just see it through. Just be prepared to do the difficult stuff and battle it out and see what happens. Just take something from the performance.
And it doesn't even mean that you won't get pantsed. Like, it's entirely possible that no matter what we do, that they'll still beat us by 10 goals. Like, that's possible. But what you want to see is that effort doesn't dip, that they don't drop their heads, they don't drop the bundle, and a 10-goal loss becomes a 20-goal loss. You know what I mean? Like, it's entirely possible that they are a 10-goal better team than us at the moment, and that is possible. And even if we do keep running, even if we do keep chasing and tackling and doing the things that, we need to show every week, that they might still win by 10 goals. But the important thing is that we don't stop doing those things regardless. And, we haven't really seen that all year.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get to half time and we're 10 goals
and
down,
as we
do the under 12 thing. Flip the team back to front and try something. It might turn into, as you're saying, a 20-goal loss as well, but just do something different. Give it a go. So we might all of a sudden go, oh, that player's better in this position. It's something we haven't tried
Max
before.
King's a wingman.
Well, you never know. He played a bit higher against Adelaide and actually looked pretty good. Instead of just sitting in the goal square waiting for nothing. And when it does get down, they have 3 players hanging off him and can't mark it. He went up the ground, got the ball, and I mean, there was no memory to look for after that. But out in the wing, he clunked every mark. So it's the sort of thing. It's the sort of thing. You just change something up to do something different if it's not working.
We're a strange lot, us Saints fans. Obviously, we know we go through more than most, and we experience more pain than every supporter. But we've spent a couple of weeks grieving. But we'll get to Friday evening and either attend the game or turn TVs on, genuinely believing that we can beat Richmond and the 2-time reigning premiers. We'll roll up our sleeves and go through it all again, and it all starts. And that's the thing. We never stop believing. Unfortunately, as much as the faith is tempted sometimes. But we'll take them on. We've beaten them before. We beat them last year. We beat them twice when they won premierships in 2017 and 2020. And you never know. They ended our season in a final last year. We can make it very tough for them if we beat them on Friday night. And you know what? Why not? So we'll rock up to that one, and we'll be back again next week, hopefully with plenty of special guests. But thank you to Grant Thomas, and go Saints.